David Lloyd George had one of the most remarkable careers in British politics. He was a charismatic Prime Minister, a stirring public speaker. He led the country through the First World War and laid the foundations for the welfare state. It was his government that gave some women the vote in 1918. But it all started from very humble beginnings, and the road to Downing Street started here in the village of Llanystumdwy in North Wales. Gwynedd Council runs the museum, which contains mementos from Lloyd George's career. And it also looks after Highgate Cottage nearby, where he was raised. In this cottage, we get a sense of the distance he travelled in his career. It's a very small 2-up, 2-down cottage. This is the main living room and kitchen. And he lived here up until he was 15 years old. They weren't desperately poor, but they were certainly very modest upbringing and a huge contrast with the grand drawing rooms of Downing Street. Britain's first Welsh Prime Minister was actually born in Manchester, but the family moved here after their father's death. David and his brother William both spoke Welsh at home and attended the village school, but they were also taught at home by their uncle. These were their desks. They all slept in these 2 rooms. Richard Lloyd, his uncle, in one room, David Lloyd George here with his grandmother, his mother and his brother and sister. Next door to the house was his uncle's workshop, and he proved to be a great influence on Lloyd George's life. He even took his uncle's surname in tribute to him. During the day, his uncle Richard was a shoemaker, but he would study late into the night so that he could teach his nephews. He was also a lay minister and a Liberal, and it was him that encouraged David Lloyd George to become a lawyer and to enter politics. As a youngster at Chapel, David would have learnt to speak out in public, and he soon developed a flair for it. Lloyd George qualified as a solicitor and started attending political meetings, taking up issues such as Welsh nationalism and land ownership reform. In 1890, he was elected the Liberal MP for Caernarfon Boroughs, a seat he was to represent until 1945. In the Commons, he soon gained a reputation for his radical speeches and debating skills. This is one of the unique attractions of the museum, with the actor Philip Maddock voicing David Lloyd George.
And another man who does not toil, receives every hour of the day, every hour of the night, whilst he slumbers, more than his poor neighbour receives in a whole year of toil.
This is the first ever pension paid in Wales to Mr Thomas of Gwyddelwen. Now, Lloyd George became Chancellor of the Exchequer in 1908, and the need to fund new welfare measures and battleships led to one of his biggest battles, the People's Budget of 1909, when he proposed new taxes, including a tax on land. There were many landowners in the House of Lords, and they blocked his budget, leading to a constitutional crisis. The standoff eventually led to the Parliament Act of 1911, which gave the House of Commons primacy over the House of Lords. This is the copy of that budget, which he sent to his uncle Richard Lloyd, with a letter saying, "This is your budget," acknowledging the influence he had had over him. Lloyd George's dynamic style meant he was very popular with the public, and as munitions minister during the First World War, he helped boost public morale. So he was very well placed to succeed Asquith as coalition Prime Minister in 1916. Though the move split the Liberal Party. In 1919, Lloyd George represented Britain at the Versailles Peace Conference. This is a draft copy of the Versailles Peace Treaty, and this is a wreath that was thrown into his carriage in London as he travelled with the King. His reputation was at its height, but he only stayed on as Prime Minister with a Conservative backing. In 1922, he was hit by a Cash for Honours scandal. The coalition broke up later that year and he stepped down. The first and so far only Prime Minister from Wales and the last Liberal Prime Minister. Lloyd George continued to divide his time between Wales and London. He had two households, one in Wales with his wife Margaret and children, another in London with his mistress Frances Stevenson. When his wife Margaret died, he married Frances and they lived near here in Tŷ Newydd. On New Year's Day 1945, he was made a peer and became Earl Lloyd George of Dwyfor. But he became too ill to join the ranks of the lords that he'd once scorned, and he died at Tŷ Newydd that March. This boulder marks his grave near the River Dwyfor in Llanystumdwy. This monument was built at a later date and includes a poem by his nephew. It reads, "Y mae'n garw a mae'n ei goron, yw bedd gwr yw bobl fi'n wron." It means this is the grave of a man that was a hero to his people.